In just 9 minutes, get the most powerful insights from the 3-hour conversation between Joe Rogan and Peter Berg. From the brutality of survival in early America to the cutthroat world of Hollywood, Berg reveals hard-hitting truths about success, resilience, and creativity. Stay till the end. You'll walk away with powerful lessons that can change your perspective. Here are the key takeaways from the podcast. Takeaway 1, the power of physical fitness and routine. Joe Rogan and Peter Berg discussed how regular exercise is one of the best ways to maintain both physical and mental well-being. Rogan explained that working out, stretching, and cold exposure are not just about staying in shape, but also about keeping the mind sharp and reducing stress. Berg agreed, sharing how his daily stretching and fitness routine has helped him in real-life situations. For example, Berg told a story about getting thrown off a horse while traveling in Africa. While mid-air, he realized he was about to have a rough landing, but thanks to his flexibility and daily stretching, he was able to roll properly and avoid injury. He joked that most people don't appreciate their bodies until they get hurt, and staying in good shape is the best way to avoid that regret. If only gym memberships came with a falling off a horse survival guarantee. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 2, the brutality of survival in early America. Berg's latest Netflix series, American Primeval, takes a raw and realistic look at life in the Wild West. He wanted to show just how dangerous and unpredictable survival was back then. Every single action, even walking a short distance, came with the risk of being attacked by wild animals, getting lost, or running into hostile groups. To make the show as realistic as possible, they decided to film in actual mountainous terrain instead of sound stages. For example, while filming in New Mexico, the cast and crew faced real-life dangers like lightning storms, snowstorms, and even rattlesnakes. They had to hire snake wranglers just to clear the area before shooting. Berg explained that he wanted audiences to truly understand how tough life was in the 1850s. Unlike today, where a bad day means running out of coffee, back then, a bad day could mean losing your scalp. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 3. Dealing with criticism in the creative world, Rogan and Berg agreed that creative people need to be careful about how much attention they give to critics. Berg shared a painful memory of when his film, Very Bad Things, received one of the worst reviews in history, making him physically sick. However, he later realized that audience feedback was far more important than the opinions of a few critics. For example, Rogan pointed out that Rotten Tomatoes now shows both critic and audience scores, and there are many cases where critics bash a movie, but regular viewers love it. Berg admitted that reading negative reviews used to ruin his mood, but over time he learned that the most successful people don't waste energy trying to please everyone. After all, critics don't pay for tickets, real audiences do. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 4. The entertainment industry is not for the weak. Berg explained how Hollywood is one of the toughest industries to break into, and only those with extreme dedication survive. He shared how, when he first told his father he wanted to be a filmmaker, his dad tried to talk him out of it. He warned Berg that if Hollywood didn't work out, he might end up directing low-budget adult films instead. While the advice wasn't exactly encouraging, it pushed Berg to work even harder. For example, he talked about how most people assume that talent is all that matters in the film industry. But in reality, the people who succeed are those who are willing to work long hours, handle rejection, and keep pushing forward even when things get tough. Hollywood is full of incredibly talented people who never made it simply because they gave up too soon. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 5, the dangers of distraction and wasted attention. Rogan emphasized that many people waste their energy on distractions, like endlessly scrolling through social media or worrying about negative comments. He compared attention to a limited resource and explained that if you spend too much of it on nonsense, you won't have enough left for the things that truly matter. For example, he admitted that some of his most disappointing moments were when he sat down to write, but got distracted by his phone. He thought he was just checking one notification, but ended up watching random videos for an hour. By the time he snapped out of it, the valuable time he could have spent working on his craft was already gone. This is something most people can relate to. Ever opened your phone just to check the time and somehow ended up reading conspiracy theories about pigeons? We're halfway through the video. Thank you for sticking with us this far. If you're enjoying it, please give us a thumbs up and share it in your WhatsApp groups. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to comment below. To see more videos like this, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Now let's continue with the video. Takeaway 6. The mental toughness of fighters and athletes. The conversation touched on the mindset of elite athletes, particularly fighters. Rogan explained that the best competitors often come from tough backgrounds and have an obsessive drive that pushes them beyond their limits. Berg agreed, adding that hardship can sometimes be an advantage because it builds resilience. For example, they discussed how legendary fighters like Mike Tyson and John Jones grew up in incredibly tough environments. These struggles forced them to develop a relentless mentality that made them unbeatable in the ring. As Rogan put it, life threw them into the deep end, and instead of drowning, they learned how to punch the water. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 7. How Hollywood balances art and business. Berg explained that while filmmaking is an art, it's also a business. Even visionary directors like Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino still have to play the financial game to get their projects made. Studios care about profits, and even the most creative films need to have commercial appeal to get funded. For example, he mentioned how major Hollywood studios are controlled by publicly traded companies that prioritize stock prices over artistic vision. Directors might dream of making the next Citizen Kane, but studio executives are more concerned with selling toys and making sequels. That's why so many movies today feel like safe, formulaic cash grabs rather than bold, original ideas. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 8. Writing requires discipline and isolation. Both Rogan and Berg talked about how deep focus and isolation are necessary for writing great material. Berg shared his personal routine, where he wakes up at 4:45 a.m., avoids his phone, and writes in complete silence to stay in a creative flow state. For example, he compared the mind to a calm pond early in the morning, where thoughts can flow smoothly. But as the day goes on, emails, notifications, and distractions throw rocks into that pond, turning it into a choppy mess. He believes that writing in the morning before the world wakes up is the best way to capture pure creative energy. Now let's move to the next takeaway. Takeaway 9. The prison system is a disaster. They briefly discussed how prisons, both in the US and globally, are more focused on punishment than rehabilitation. Berg even joked about an idea for a reality show where contestants would be sent to different prisons around the world to see who could survive the longest. For example, he suggested sending one contestant to a Thai prison, another to a Venezuelan prison, and a third to a Russian prison. The only way to escape would be using a secret code word. While the idea was obviously a joke, it highlighted the serious issue of inhumane conditions in many prisons worldwide. Now let's move to the last takeaway. Takeaway 10. Some of the greatest minds are a little crazy. Rogan and Berg discussed how some of the most successful people in history, whether in sports, business, or the arts, often have an obsessive, almost manic drive. Being normal rarely leads to greatness. For example, Rogan pointed out how Michael Jordan was so competitive that he would invent personal rivalries just to push himself harder. Elon Musk, despite running multiple billion-dollar companies, still finds time to work longer hours than most people. As Rogan put it, you don't get to that level without being a little out of your mind. Here is a brief introduction about Peter Berg. Peter Berg is a writer, director, and producer. His latest project is the Netflix series, American Primeval. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this summary of the Joe Rogan Experience podcast with Peter Berg informative. If you enjoyed watching this video, please leave a like below and share this video in your WhatsApp groups. You can also discuss about this video by commenting below. To get more such videos in your timeline, press the subscribe button below.